In 1961, the Eritrean Liberation Front, led by Idris Muhammad Adem and Hamid Idris Awad, along with 12 Eritreans, took a stand by attacking Ethiopian police officers and stations in the Asmara region in response to oppression from the Eritrean Assembly and basic freedoms taken by the emperor. These violent attacks, gaining support from the people, led to a war for 30 years. The EPLF, by this event, gained freedom for the Eritreans, created the PFDJ government, introduced their own currency, Nagfa, and unintentionally created long-term instability in Ethiopia. Eritrean colonization began with the Italians arriving in Asab and Massawa in 1855 for the hope of creating a port that would provide safety for Italian ships trading with European and Asian markets. With little resistance, they colonized Eritrea and started building the infrastructure, such as train tracks, houses, and 2 ports for incoming trade ships.
Eritrean port is the main export-import hub in Eritrea. From industry, mining industry, we have food product. And secondly, the Eritrean ports are in the main Red Sea, and other countries use it, so we use tariff.
However, Emperor Menelik of Ethiopia could not allow Italy to colonize since he too had ambitions for Eritrea. A peace treaty was made but did not last for long. Since Italy made the treaty, it claimed that Ethiopia was part of their Eritrean colony. However, the emperor denied these claims and decided that Italy had enough time in Eritrea and met with 70,000 soldiers and killed the Italian settlers. This bloody and embarrassing defeat for the Italians created anger within, which made them collect all resources to battle them. Finally, with enough supplies, the war broke out and led to defeat and death of the Ethiopian emperor. But little did they know that the British Empire would soon be arriving. Becoming true in 1941, the British forces invaded Eritrea and soon defeated the Italians on April 1st, 1941. The British, who didn't want to directly manage Eritrea, gave it to their ally and new emperor Haile Selassie to manage. However, life for Eritreans was getting worse, and Eritrean leaders such as Wolde Mariam and Sheikh Ibrahim Sultan took a stand non-violently by collecting votes of Eritreans wanting freedom. However, countries such as Britain and the US wanted Eritrea to begin annexation with Ethiopia because of the valuable ports in the Red Sea their ally would have. As the US Secretary of State John Foster Dulles said, "From the point of view of justice, the opinions of the Eritrean people must receive consideration. Nevertheless, the strategic interests of the United States in the Red Sea Basin and considerations of security and world peace makes it necessary that the country has to be linked with our ally, Ethiopia." Then, in 1952, the United Nations ratified the Federation of Eritrea to Ethiopia, showing the political effect the Western powers had on that decision. However, Haile Selassie wanted full annexation and made the Ethiopian language Amharic the official language of Eritrea and ended use of the Eritrean flag, which created frustration within the people. This act gave courage to the Eritreans to take a stand violently and begin warfare against Ethiopia. This began on September 1st, 1961 when Hamid Idris Awad with 12 men fired the first shots against Ethiopian police, marking the beginning of a 30-year armed struggle and showing the long-term significance this event had sparked.
The Eritrean people loved the flag. They wanted their own culture, their own language. So Amharic is a foreign language, so it's a natural reaction when your language is replaced by foreign language, different from other countries. The people rose up in frustration, and they rose up and peacefully, politically they struggle, peaceful struggle. That did not work because of the suppression by Haile Selassie in Ethiopia. They kill people, they put them in jails.
The resistance grew as the ELF, or Eritrean Liberation Front, blew up the railway line near Asgardia, cutting off Ethiopian supplies. But inside the ELF, there were arguments and disagreements that began on what the agenda should be, which led to a 4-year civil war between the ELF and the new Eritrean People's Liberation Front, or EPLF. The EPLF from this war came out as a top Eritrean army and began to fight Ethiopia almost immediately. However, tensions inside the Ethiopian government was going to take a huge turn. In 1974, a military coup against Haile Selassie had begun because of the lack of food arriving at Ethiopia that instead was going to the war efforts. While his leading general, Mengistu Haile Mariam, saw this event unfold, he took action with his military army, the Derg, supported by Soviet forces, and disposed of the Ethiopian emperor. This led to Mengistu becoming dictator of Ethiopia in 1974 and the start of the Red Terror for Eritreans everywhere. During this time, Eritreans were particularly demoralized with cold temperatures in the trenches and the hot temperature outside, making the soldiers miserable, and with not enough medical supplies and water, made them want to give up. However, they all believed one dream and one thing, and that was the freedom of their country, which would come at a cost. This event since 1961 sparked much needed support from the people, and more Eritreans began to join the resistance. However, the war still looked hopeless and certain defeat was there. But there came up a miracle. The women of Eritrea, tired of caring for the wounded and taking care of the family, wanted to make a difference by participating in the war efforts. They took a stand by going against the gender inequality and added new numbers to the Eritrean army. To capture the cities taken over by the Ethiopian forces, the Eritreans began to make innovations to their acquired weapons captured from the enemy. This had to take place because the steepness of the terrain would make the equipment hard to transport to the mountains, creating ineffective battle. These effective innovations began to give Eritreans an advantage on the mountains and make successful warfare. The Ethiopians, to decrease soldier morale, began to hang EPLF soldiers in certain villages.
Their people were getting oppressed, they didn't have any freedom in their country, so they had to fight and protect their people.
Taking back several cities and villages like Nakfa, the EPLF began collecting resources and advanced toward Massawa. The mission to capture Massawa was called Fenkel, which had begun during the year 1990. There was heavy fighting and struggle between the EPLF and Ethiopian forces, with shelling from above by Ethiopian fighter jets. The battle lasted for several days before the EPLF took over the key port city, Massawa. There were many casualties from both the EPLF and Ethiopian armies. Since the port was gone, the Ethiopian soldiers began to lose hope since their source of food was now cut off by the Eritreans.
They blocked all the ways, like by land or sea, in a way like Ethiopians could not get their equipment, so they didn't have anything to fight with.
This attack in 1961 in turn helped push the thought of violence and war to the Eritrean people to gain freedom for themselves. These thoughts led to Eritrean military groups such as the Eritrean Liberation Front, which led to independence. Then during 1994, the EPLF turned from a guerrilla to a government called the PFDJ, or People's Front for Democracy and Justice, which would run the country. With independence, Eritrea became unhappy about using the Ethiopian birr and created their own currency, Nakfa. This greatly affected the Ethiopian government by a great loss of Eritreans not using the currency, decreasing the Ethiopian economy.
So instead paying by the Ethiopian birr has to be by notes, so it makes it difficult to trade. So the Ethiopian economy impacted because they have to pay by foreign currency, so it hurts the Ethiopian currency.
This event in 1961 also was the catalyst for the war. This war made Ethiopia devote resources to the soldiers, including food. The Ethiopian citizens, not receiving enough food, became angry and fed up with the leaders, so riots and attacks began weakening the stability of Ethiopia. While the attack in 1961 inspired people to fight, which led to independence of Eritrea, there were many casualties and losses in the battlefield. Over 150,000 Eritreans had died during this war. This independence, they knew, was gained by the brave attack of Hamad Addis Awad in 1961 and the protesting of Sheikh Abraham Sultan and Wolde Mariam that lost their lives. These men took a stand against the oppression of Ethiopia to give Eritreans the freedom to enjoy life in the Eritrean country there is today. Against all odds, they beat the Ethiopians, and that truly makes it a victory to the Eritreans.